This show is sponsored by Infinite Zeal Syndicate. You can follow him on Twitter @_Infinite Zeal. He is a great liberty-minded fella that just wants to share the message of liberty and also has fantastic merch like this hat I'm wearing right now. You see me wear it on every show. He's a great gentleman, and I highly suggest you give him a follow because he's one of the good ones, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome to the BudsnReality Show. I'm Sean Collins, the guy with a lot to say. And this week's guest is Mr. Econ Bro. Man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It's very good to be here. Very, very good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You know, I'm glad to have you. We've been talking about this for a hot minute, and the time has come, and here we are. And we're gonna do this. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, we are Twitter buddies, or X or whatever you want to call it now. You know, I call it Malcolm because of Malcolm X. But anyways, but you know, you are doing some things and you're in Nigeria. Let's get that out of the way right now. You're my first guest from a foreign land. So I'm digging this a bunch. You know, this is great. I'm definitely to have you.
That's good.
But you're doing the Nigerian Liberty Project over there.
Yes, I am.
Which is, from my angle of things, extremely brave what you are doing over there, because anybody who knows what's going on, you know, not only in Africa in general, but in Nigeria, you know, speaking out against government might not be the best idea.
No, it's not the best.
And so here you are doing your thing, and you're talking about actual liberty. You're talking about Austrian economics. You're talking about, you know, the Fed and central banking. And I think that is absolutely amazing. Look, I'm getting goosebumps. The hair on my arm is standing up right now. No, I really am, because I'm proud of you, dude.
Thank you.
For putting yourself out there to try to make a better way for your people and your country. You know, and so let's talk about that a minute. Like, how did you even get into Austrian economics or even liberty-minded stuff when they're not really teaching you guys that stuff over there?
No, at all. They're not teaching us here. So my journey, I would say, began in 2013. What actually led me down this path is Christianity led me down this liberty path. I know it's strange to hear, but when I started to study Christianity in depth, I came across a couple of people online and a couple of content creators who were Christians, and then I noticed they had, should I say, liberty adjacent views. Let me put it that way. And then so I was like, okay, let me look into what this is. So I studied economics at university. That's what I studied in school. But then many of the things I was taught didn't add up. It didn't make sense to me, but you know, that's what they taught us. So I just decided to run with it. So in 2015 or 16, I forget the exact year, things were going really bad in the country. We had just in 2015, we had just gotten a new president who ended his tenure just in May of this year. The worst president we've ever had by far, or yet anyway. I don't know what the future holds. So so he came in and things were pretty bad before he came in, and then they started to get worse. So I started to ask myself, like, is there nothing that can be done to solve these economic problems? What did the US do? What did the UK do? You know, what did the West do in general to make them prosper? So I started to look into, so this is while looking into those my Christian liberty adjacent content creators at the time. So I started to look into, you know, Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, some of those Nordic countries, the places people usually point to that these countries are successful countries. Now, those countries aren't perfect. The US isn't perfect, but I didn't know this at the time. You know, all I saw was a prosperous West. So I started to look at these countries, and then I noticed they all had one thing in common: free markets. That was the eye-opening moment. I noticed they all had free markets. So I started to look into, we weren't taught free market economics in school. We're taught Keynesian nonsense, neoclassical nonsense. So so I started to look into free markets, and then I came across people like Milton Friedman, F.A. Hayek. I had heard of Mises, right? But I had heard of Mises, but I heard F.A. Hayek was a student of Mises, and I tried to read Mises back then, but it was too difficult to read. As I've said, English second language for me, so it was too difficult to understand at the time. So, but F.A. Hayek was much easier and very, very relatable. So I just thought, okay, let me just go with Hayek, and then eventually I encountered Thomas Sowell, which was. So anyway, I encountered the works of Thomas.
Did you run into Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell?
Yes.
Oh man, yes.
So basic economics, knowledge and decisions, Thomas Sowell, watching his videos. I used to tell people that Thomas Sowell is the wisest man in our time. That's what I used to say at the time. And then something happened. I think it was last year. I was watching the Patrick Bet-David. I don't know if you know him, Patrick Bet-David.
I've heard the name. I've definitely heard the name.
Valuetainment. So Dave Smith was on his podcast recently. He's doing really good stuff. He's a conservative guy, and I used to be conservative, right? I used to follow Crowder, Ben Shapiro, all those guys, but I sort of got tired of their stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love Crowder. I know a lot of people in our side of our side don't really like Steven Crowder, but I love the guy. I mean, I could go into why I love him. Crowder helped me become the man I am today.
Okay.
Yeah, he helped me become the man I am today.
You have to appreciate that.
Yeah. So even though I don't agree with him, we disagree on issues now, but if not for Crowder, I would not be here, right? So I was into all these guys, but I started to get tired of their stuff. It was repetitive culture war nonsense, and it may be a serious issue over there, but that's not an issue here for me. The major issue here is poverty, right? In Nigeria. So anyway, so I was listening to a Patrick Bet-David podcast, and then he said he was going to have on libertarians, and I did not like libertarians because anytime I heard the word libertarian, I thought of Reason. The people at Reason magazine, right? Those
right. Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't like those kinds of. I still don't like those kinds of libertarians. I don't. So then it occurred to me. So I had a couple of friends who were doing Mises and Rothbard, and they added me to a group where there were other people like them, and we got into an argument because I was a conservative, they were libertarians, and they weren't very good at defending their position, to be honest. They weren't very good. So what they said didn't make any sense. By the way, I'm friends with these guys now. We love each other now. But so we sort of fell out because they weren't making their position very clear. I didn't understand what they were saying. So I just thought these libertarians are kooky people. So that day I was watching the Patrick Bet-David podcast. Larry Sharp was on it, and Dave Smith, Spike Cohen, and some lady. And all the things they were saying, I agreed with. Right? As someone who had read Sowell, a little bit of Milton Friedman, I was like, everything they're saying makes absolute sense. So Patrick Bet-David asked Dave a question, and I attribute my becoming a libertarian to his answer to that question. So Patrick said, what problem do you libertarians have with a Milton Friedman, for instance? I was like, okay, now let me see what he has to say against Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman was like God to me at that time. And then he said that he doesn't really have anything against Milton Friedman. Very political answer. Dave Smith, I mean. So he said, I'm more of a Rothbardian myself. And I was like, Rothbardian? I was like, what's that? Rothbardian. So I went to, so everything they said, I had no argument against anything these three men said. I had no argument, but I was just upset. You know how it is when you're getting new information that is challenging your false beliefs, but you don't have anything to say. But because of pride, you don't want to admit what this guy is saying is correct. So I was angry. I hated them. I thought the libertarians were crazy people. I thought it would be very easy to just throw their arguments out, as I did with the libertarians I met here in Nigeria, right? Just like 10 of them. So don't think like quite big movement. Yeah. So I thought they would be that easy to take apart, and then they were making so much sense, and I kept getting angry. And then when he said Rothbardian, I said, let me look up what that is. So I typed Rothbardian, and then I saw Murray Rothbard, and I started to watch some of his videos, but unfortunately, the quality of the videos these were videos shot in the 80s, the 70s. Yeah,
they're old.
So the sound, the audio, the video was terrible, and he doesn't have the most interesting voice, or he didn't have the most interesting voice. Murray Rothbard, I mean. So I was talking to Hannah Cox one day I was tweeting at her on Twitter, and then I said, what would she recommend to me if to a new libertarian? And then she recommended The Law by Bastiat and Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson.
Yes.
And I read them, and I was a libertarian like that.
Yes!
So Dave Smith led me to Hannah Cox, to libertarianism, to Rothbard, and then you know how these things are. They recommend someone to you, and then I came across Hannah Cox, who I disagree with on a lot of issues right now, but she was pivotal in my journey as well. So when she recommended Hazlitt and Bastiat, I remembered listening to Hazlitt that night, the audiobook Economics in One Lesson, and I was like, this guy is a god. I was like, everything he's saying is correct. And then in the introduction, he attributed his work to Mises. So then that led me back to Mises, and then I started to look into Rothbard. And when I read Rothbard,
which one by Rothbard did you read?
The Case Against the Fed was the first.
Yes.
That was the first.
To read that again pretty soon.
I think I must have read it 3 times. So that was the book I gave out at my first seminar, The Case Against the Fed, to the students at the university I spoke to. So then what has government done to our money, man, economy, and state, which is more difficult to read than all the others. But
yes.
So I just had to jump into Hopper and Hans Sennholz and Joe Salerno and Robert Murphy. I'm currently reading Understanding Money Mechanics. I started, but I had to stop because of some other things I'm working on right now, but I'm going to go back to it. So I just started consuming the libertarian literature, Austrian libertarian literature, and then all of a sudden, people like Hayek and Sowell and Friedman, who I love, who I respect, they started to seem a bit milquetoast, compared to Mises and Rothbard.
Mises and Rothbard are gods when it comes to Austrian economics. Like, okay,
they really are.
I'm a Rothbardian. I love Murray Rothbard. He is the epitome of freedom. He is the epitome of learning when it comes to learning Austrian economics or anarchist libertarianism, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
They are amazing. The Theory of Money Credit by Ludwig von Mises is the
best book on money,
about money ever written.
Ever. I agree with you 100%.
Murray Rothbard said that.
He what?
Murray Rothbard calls that book the greatest book about money ever written. Now, let me ask you something. Now, you're reading all those books. Was it hard to attain those books in Nigeria?
No, I didn't buy any of them. The Mises Institute has free copies of those books. You can download free PDFs and audiobooks. So I just downloaded them. You can't get any of them here. You cannot get Thomas Sowell here. You can't get Thomas Sowell. You can't get Milton Friedman here. Right. You can get Paul Krugman here. Imagine that. But you can't get Thomas Sowell. You can't get Thomas Sowell here. So everything I got online. So I've just been So I have like a digital library, you know,
Okay.
and then the Mises Institute, I've been speaking with their people. I'm going on Phil Bishop's show on Thursday.
Nice.
You know, just no, tomorrow actually. He moved it up. It's tomorrow. So the Mises Institute, they've been really helpful. They gave me permission to reprint some of their books here and distribute.
Okay.
So I can just take them to because I tried to order them for the last seminar. And then when I spoke with the guy at the library at Mises and we did the numbers, I wasn't going to be able to afford that. Right. So he gave me an alternative that I could print some of them. And then fortunately, the books by Rothbard and Mises, you're allowed to print those.
Okay.
Sadly, I can't. I don't have rights to print economics in one lesson, which is what I would have loved to give people. You know, but at least Mary's books, the small ones, I can print them here, fairly decent quality and distribute. So,
you know, Murray Rothbard's Anatomy of the State is a very short book that somebody could read in an afternoon, and that's amazing. I own a physical copy of it. I'm a big bookworm, you know that from Twitter, you know, with the Liberty Book Club and all that stuff. But you know, how has your response been? Because you have actually done speeches in front of students, universities and secondary schools. How is
I haven't done secondary schools yet, just universities.
Okay, but how is your response been though in those speeches? Because you put on some very good speeches. I've watched them.
Thank you. So how do I say this? It sounds almost like Greek to them, like I'm speaking another language, you know, but it's a language they understand. So the economics they are used to is economics of mathematics, all the econometrics and all that stuff, you know, all that. They don't even understand the stuff themselves. They don't, right? I passed my exams in school, but I didn't really understand, and they didn't make any real life sense,
right?
Know? So, but when I spoke to them, when I speak to them about Austrian economics, I'm not using any of those technical terms. You know, it's just logic. It's just simple words. So they understand what I'm saying, but they've never heard anything like it before. So I was breaking down the evolution of money, the origin of money theory that Karl Menger put forth to one of the students at a university here, you know, and he almost lost his mind. He just kept. We were at an ice cream shop. I took him out. We went to get some ice cream. I wanted to introduce him to my program, so he would talk to his students for me. So took him. So it's not like we're on a date or something. So I took him to the ice cream shop, and then the guy he got up and put his hands on his head. People can be very dramatic here, you know. His mind was literally blown when I spoke to him about that basic stuff, you know. Then I started to talk to him about I was basically trying to summarize the theory of money and credit by Mises to him, and he lost his mind, you know. And then he was like, he needs to talk to his fellow students about this. So when they eventually gathered, and then I spoke to them, they were in awe. They were in awe, you know. So I just have to keep I have to keep going back and doing it over and over again to make sure it sticks. I've seen some of them start to have doubts, you know, because I'm not following up. So I've seen some of them start to have doubts. You know, they are beginning to question. But we have like a group we created online where on WhatsApp where I talk to them. So the questions they throw back at me, but it's good. It shows that they're thinking, right? They're not just swallowing everything I'm saying. Yeah, so some of them are actually thinking. Some of them just trust me. So they're like, we like this guy, so what he's saying is correct, and which is good if what you're telling the people is correct, right? But some of them are actually questioning. It's so good. So I've had people call me, right? Send me messages, saying a friend of mine. I'm from another state. A friend of mine sent me told me what you guys discussed at your seminar, and we're interested in having you over at our place here, you know. So so since I can't reach them right now, I just added them to the group, you know, and then we talk about these things. Yeah. And yeah, so
now, what is the current economic system in Nigeria right now? Are they a Keynesian? Are they Austrians?
no, they're not, they are Keynesians. So everything here is left-wing economics. So we have from the Keynesian, the name is actually pronounced Keynesians. So I use Maynard Keynes. So it was one of the first things they taught us in school, how to pronounce his name. And I checked, it's not a Nigerian pronunciation. That's how it's actually pronounced, Keynes. So it's Keynesian. So so everything we're taught here is it's the same thing they teach you guys. They teach economic students in the US. It's the same curriculum all over the world. So it's Keynesian, or let me call it neoclassical economics, which is also a fusion of rubbish. You know, a little Keynesian here, a little Adam Smith here. So nothing Austrian. Nothing Austrian. They don't teach anything Austrian. Now, they teach they play with the idea of the marginal revolution that Karl Menger started, right? They touch it in beginners microeconomics. They teach it. So sorry, intermediate. It's not in beginners. Intermediate. They teach a little bit about marginal utility and all that stuff, but they don't teach it from Karl Menger's perspective. They teach it from the perspective of Jaynes and Varros, who are also they're also a part of the marginal revolution, but they had this problem of, rather than rank what's the word? Rather than help me God. So rather than, they attributed values to utility, right? So there's something they call a util, you know, one util of satisfaction, two utils of satisfaction. So they came up with the subjective value theory, but unlike Menger that ranked, he said utility cannot be quantified, it can only be ranked, but those guys actually quantified it. So they now have you solving mathematical equations to determine utility, marginal utility and total utility and all that stuff, which is absolute rubbish. It's absolute nonsense. So the only thing they sort of get right in and this is global, it's not just a Nigerian thing. The only thing they get right in economics, let me just call it the marginal revolution. The only thing they get right, they didn't get it properly right. I don't know if that's the
right. You know. I'm picking up what you're putting down now.
Okay.
Here's the thing about between the Keynesian and the Austrian economist, which boggles my mind that people buy into the Keynes ways, because the Keynesian economics system is based off of debt. Like, you go into debt and pay out of your life. That is what the current US system is. That's what you're doing in Nigeria, apparently. And so when it comes to Austrian economics, you know, it's based off of savings and assets. And so it's almost like a no-brainer to be like, okay, maybe the Austrians are onto something, because they're basing their economic system off of savings and assets rather than fucking debt. And you can acquire, and the big difference is between the two is it's hard to acquire savings and debt. You actually have to, or I'm sorry, savings and assets.
Savings and assets,
Savings and assets. You actually have to put the work in to have savings and assets.
Yes.
To where you don't have to do a fucking thing to create debt. All you got to do is fill out some paperwork and have a decent credit score. And by decent, it's minuscule decent. They'll give you money. They'll give you a credit card or a loan with an astronomical interest rate that you'll never be able to pay out of, right? That you will be paying for the rest of your life, whether it's your home or your vehicles or whatever you have to take out on loan. And not to say like you shouldn't be able to take things out on loan. We have to in this day and age. There's certain things you have to buy on loans. Nobody's going to be able to afford a car unless it's like an El Cheapo, crapper that you drive around, or nobody's going to be able to buy a house without a loan. You have to take loans out for certain things now. It's the way they have it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. At this seminar, I was talking to the students about how when I was growing up, our parents were, so it's not like things were so great back then, but things weren't as bad, So the central bank used to be a lot more conservative when I was growing up. So my parents bought houses. They didn't have to, they could save and buy houses, save and buy cars, right? Today you can't do that.
Nope.
You can't do that. You need to make a whole lot of money, and there is literally no way a regular Joe can make that the kind of money required to buy a house. So you have to take out a mortgage. Mortgages were not a thing when I was growing up. They were not a thing here when I was growing. I mean, in the 90s, mortgages were not a thing in Nigeria, right? But today, everywhere to take out to buy a small house, you need to take out a mortgage. We didn't have the kind of debt system that you guys have over there. You guys can afford to because you export your debt, right? The US can export the dollar out to other countries in exchange for stuff. Well, we can't do that here. Our currency, like nobody wants the Nigerian naira, right? Nobody wants naira. And so everybody wants the dollar. So our demand for the dollar is keeping it propped up, so to speak. But we can't do the same kind of thing that you guys do there. But then, how do I say this? Our central bankers back then, they knew this. Nobody wants the naira, so you can't just print it and just give it out like that. But in the past maybe 20, let me say 15 years, our central bank, they let me say they didn't learn from their predecessors, and they just print and print and print and print and print, and the currency is losing its value literally every day. Every day, the naira is losing its value. There was a biscuit I used to buy as a kid, for 100 naira, which
what would that translate to in American dollars?
Then 100 naira was maybe like $1 at the time.
Okay.
Yes. Today $1 is 800 naira, the same $1. Okay. And now this is a dollar that has lost value. So this is not like the dollar of the 1990s, right? So this is a depreciated dollar, and it's still 800 naira to $1 here. So this biscuit, we used to buy it at 100 naira when in the 90s, right? The same biscuit is 1,600 today.
Wow.
The same biscuit is 1,600 today.
Now,
so everything.
Are you calling it naira? Am I saying that right?
Naira, Naira.
Okay.
Naira.
Now, okay. Let me.
It's very terrible.
Let me ask you this real quick. How many to have a decent job? Let's not call it a good job, but a job to where you're comfortable. How many naira is needed per hour to make that work?
So we don't work per hour here. You just work and then they pay you at the end of the month. That's how it works.
Salary. So, okay, so what's your salary per month on a decent job? And then translate it to dollars if you could.
This is very, very hard to, and because different worlds, things are very different here.
Right,
so I'm trying to think of. So let's say,
what's a good monthly naira that would get you by and be able to have a comfortable life? Not a great life, but a comfortable life. Like, what would be your monthly naira for that?
A comfortable life. 300,000 a month.
Okay.
300,000 a month.
Now, how many jobs are offering that over there right now?
I would say less than 10% of the jobs in the country are offering that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're
I
not
had
playing games when you're talking about poverty in your country then?
Sorry, say that again. I didn't catch that.
You're not playing games when you're talking about poverty in your country then?
No. We are very extremely poor here.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
So sorry.
that being said, gosh, what's a good way to ask this? What are people doing to get by then? I guess that's the easiest way to ask. What are people doing to get by? Is it very crime ridden, or is it very organized crime, or is it just like, is there a lot of gangs, or like how are people living if the poverty rate is so bad?
Well, I honestly don't know how to answer this question. Okay, so let me try.
Okay.
How are people getting by here? So for myself, right? I think it's just for myself. I'm not a wealthy person. I can't say how much I earn here. Not on. I mean, I can talk to you about it after.
No. It's none of my
But
business either. I'm just
yeah,
asking questions.
yeah. So for I don't earn the 300,000 a month here. I don't. I earn less than that. From my actual job.
Right.
I earn less than that. So but for someone like myself, I think it's just it's wise spending. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
I mean, the country has taught us to live within our means or less than our means. Let me put it that way. But apart from that, so now that's what's pretty much what everybody's doing. But some people can't live that kind of life, so they've resorted to crime. So now let me tell you a couple of interesting things.
Yeah.
Your listeners are in for a treat.
I love interesting
So
things. Please tell.
okay, so I'll start from the the small ones to the weighty ones. So of course there's a lot of theft here, right? Theft, robberies, and all that stuff. It's pretty normal here. Like people steal stuff. My car was broken into a couple of months ago, and my laptop was stolen. I mean, I've lost. Sorry, I need to count. I've lost 2 laptops and 3 phones in the past maybe 12 or 24 months. Because of theft. My car was broken into. It's that kind of thing is pretty normal. So
Okay.
you have people driving on the road in traffic, and then people walk up to them with guns and they're like, bring your. It doesn't happen where this type doesn't happen where I live. It happens in Lagos. Lagos is like the New York of Nigeria. It's
Okay.
yeah. So it's like the activity, the business center of Nigeria. So it's like New York, California. It's all the entertainment is also there. All the debauchery is also there. So this happens in Lagos. People are in traffic and somebody just taps your window with a stick or a knife or a gun and tells you to, fork over all your money and your laptops and your phones and everything. So that is pretty standard in Lagos. Here in the capital, it's more they break into your house or break into your car while you're not there. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on, right? So now I'm speaking for when I was speaking of how we get by, I'm speaking for, should I say, the middle class, the educated population. We have a large uneducated population here. So those guys, they just farm and eat what they grow on their farms.
Okay.
It's not as cool as you think. Like, it's not like they have cattle and they have fresh vegetables. It's just maybe yams and cassava and just starchy foods, basically just to fill their tummies. It's not.
Okay.
So it's not glamorous at all.
Right.
You know, when you hear people are farming and living off the land, sometimes some of us like to glamorize that lifestyle now, but it's not the same here. You know, so
Right.
it's terrible. That kind of lifestyle is very terrible here.
Doesn't sound
Um,
good.
it's not at all. So back to what I was saying. So there are a lot of robberies, a whole lot of robberies during the COVID-19 lockdown period. There was this thing where gangs would send letters to an area, right? And they say, we're coming tonight at 9 p.m. Don't resist us. Just give us your phones, your money, your everything, you know. And you would go to the police. This again happened in Lagos. You would go to the police and they sent us a letter. The police would be like, we can't do anything about it. And then they'll actually come, rob, and leave.
Wow.
You know, so yeah. I mean, they tell you they're coming. They tell you they're coming. Now, I want you to so I'll do this right after when you post this. I would, when people react, my people react to what I'm saying, I'll tweet it at you to see. People are going to hate me for what I'm saying, you know, because I'm exposing the country. You know, that's the kind of mindset some people here have. Anyway, so there's more to come. This is child's play, you know, the robberies. So we also have kidnappings. That's like the most lucrative business in Nigeria now. And people are kidnapped. I kid you not. I kid you not. There is no month. There is no month that people don't get kidnapped. Just right down the road from my house. Like if you literally a stone throw away from my house, a man was kidnapped. You know.
Wow.
I
Now,
can't.
are you
Yeah.
guys allowed to have guns there? Like, are you allowed
No,
to?
we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. Which is something that
Oh,
is part of
shit.
my advocacy, but I have to be careful talking about that one for now.
Well, yeah.
It's part of my it's part of my advocacy, but you know, I have to be careful talking about. So we're not allowed to carry guns. So someone just down the road from my house was kidnapped. You know, and before that, on another street, a couple of people were kidnapped. It's very normal. They just walk into an area and just shoot up the place and take people, and you have to pay them money.
Now, how are the bad guys getting guns when you aren't allowed to have guns?
What we were told is that if you ban guns, then there'll be no gun crime. Apparently, they were wrong.
Interesting.
So, and then
hang on a second. Americans, if you're listening to this right now, you need to listen very closely to what my man Econ is saying right now. Very closely.
It's very ridiculous. They don't let the people. So I don't want to get upset. So before we you started recording, I was talking to you about those cattle rearers, the nomads from the north who take their cattle about and they have guns, right? So these people go from village to village, looting, pillaging, raping. If you see the images that come out of these places that they raid, as I said, there is some kind of ethno-religious cleansing that's going on in the northern part of the country, where these so they are called Fulani, the tribe, they are called Fulani. You have them scattered all over northern Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. You have them scattered all over. They are nomads. They just go from place to place. But then the ones in my country, they have guns. Let me just leave it at that. Gotcha. Can't say too much. Yeah, they have guns. Some will say
what you're saying is that they've disarmed the populace who are law-abiding citizens.
Yes.
But criminals still get their hands on guns to take advantage of people like you.
Yes.
Listen up, America. Listen to that real close right now. Wow. That's insanity. So you have, unless you go into the black market somewhere, you don't get to have a gun.
No, you don't. You can't. And if you are caught with a gun, it's probably one of the worst things. I mean, I don't know which is worse, being a counterfeiter or being caught with a gun here. It's a very, very serious offense to be caught with a gun here. So so these militants, they go from village to village, murdering people, chasing them out. It's very, very gory. So now then these same guys, they turn to kidnapping. So last year something fantastic happened. So we have this beat up train that goes from, I think, one state to another, whatever. You know, I've never used the train before. I'm not a fan of public transport, so I'd rather drive to that state myself, which it's unsafe to do that now, because if you drive to that place, kidnappers will get you on the road. It's, yeah. So so these guys, they I don't know how they blew the tracks, right? And then they derailed the train, got into the cars and shot up the train, and kidnapped a lot of people, right? Kidnapped a lot of people. And then there was a girl who was shot, who survived. She didn't die instantly. And then she started tweeting that the train was just hijacked by these Fulani militants or whatever. And she was tweeting for help. And then people were calling her a bitch and saying she hates the government, she hates Northerners, she hates this and she hates that. That how can she be saying she's shot? And then what she's doing is that she's tweeting. And then the following day, everyone found out it was true. The girl was found dead, you know, in the middle of the forest where the train passes through. Very, very tragic story. So the people who were kidnapped, the government had to pay to bail some of them out, or if not all of them, I don't know. So like my friend, I have a personal friend, someone I know personally. Her father was traveling and then he was kidnapped, right? And they called the family to pay ransom, and they paid the ransom and they killed the guy regardless after they paid the money. Wow. Someone I know personally. Yeah. So this is not like a friend of a friend, a personal friend. Her father is late today because of this kind of, so kidnapping is a very, very big, very, very big business here. Now, let me tell you something very, very frightening, very disgusting, that just recently made a resurgence here. So we have ritual killings here, and people are very superstitious. They believe in voodoo kind of stuff here. So and if you have the stomach for it, I could search for the videos and send them to you. You have young boys, some of them teenagers, that they go to witch doctors who promise them money and fame if they can bring maybe the head of a child or the heart of a virgin or some ridiculous nonsense. And some of these boys, actually, as I said, if you have the stomach for it, I could look for the videos. I don't keep them because it's very gory stuff, very grotesque.
I don't need
look
to
for them
see
and
that
send them to you.
personally. I will definitely take your word for it. Holy shit.
So you see boys. There was one I saw, 2 10-year-old boys, 10-year-old boys killed a 14-year-old girl or something and took her body parts to a witch doctor. 10-year-old boys. 10-year-old. So you have these ritual killings. Now, growing up in the 80s and 90s, I used to hear stories about ritual killings a whole lot. Nigeria is a very, very superstitious society, but those things sort of disappeared in the 2000s, right? We stopped hearing about ritual killings. You would always hear about one here and there, but it wasn't a thing. Right. So all of a sudden, last year, it just made a comeback, very frightening. So, and now because of social media, they commit these atrocious acts and then post the videos online for people to see, right? Then there's this very, very sick thing that they do now, where the witch doctors make them eat human filth, human feces. So there are actually, I'm not saying what I was told. I've watched several videos where young men would defecate on like a slice of bread and eat it because some witch doctor told them that doing that would get them riches. And then there was a guy that tried to kill his mother and then his mother escaped, and she called the police. The mother was bloodied. I mean, he had beaten her almost to death. She put his mother, not his stepmother, not his friend's mother, his biological mother. He tried to kill her, and then she struggled, and then eventually she escaped, called the police. The boy was the young man was caught. So this ritual killing thing, before in the 90s, when I used to hear of these cases of ritual killings, it used to be like elderly men, right? We had lots of movies about this kind of stuff. They would pay some mercenaries to kill young girls and maybe take out their breasts or their tongues or their hearts or whatever, and they use it for sacrifice. But now we have young boys as young as 10 years old trying to do these things. So everyone is, and then of course, you've heard of the Nigerians are very popular for internet scams, right? So even that has been dialed to 11 now, because everyone is broke. Everyone wants money. And by the way, I blame it on central banking. I'm currently working on an article that ties the moral decline of society to central banking, because when money starts to lose its value, people do all they can to get as much money as possible, right?
Well, yeah, because it's desperate times call for desperate things,
desperate measures.
That's just what it is. You know, it's not hard math or hard to figure out. Like, when people are desperate, they will do some serious desperate shit. You see it in ghettos now, like here in America, where like, you know, people will live in ghettos per se, are some very poor neighborhoods, you know, not necessarily to that magnitude, but crime is like skyrocketed. And there's murder and rape and kidnapping and decapitation or whatever it may be.
I've seen the reports. I've seen many of them, some very, very horrific. We have all that going on here. So again, one thing I'm trying to, as I said, I'm writing an article to explain this, how central banking is actually responsible for this moral decline in all societies. So one thing I want to be careful in doing in the article is not to put the entire blame on central banking, but central banking is just a catalyst that has, should I say, sped it up or whatever. Anyway, I'll send you a link when I'm done writing it.
Absolutely, please.
Yeah. So I looked into it. No one has actually done, the closest anyone has done to that is I don't know if you know Jörg Guido Holzmann. He's one of these Mises guys. So he wrote a book called The Ethics of Money Production, and then in one of the chapters he spoke about the consequences of fiat money. You know, so he wrote basically the cultural consequences rather of fiat money. So that's the closest anyone has done to what I want to do. So in a manner of speaking, what I want to do is kind of new. You know, I'm building off Guido's work to, so it's not like I'm some super genius or anything, but just.
Well, you know, and I don't want to end the show on a bad note, so I want to talk about some happy stuff, you know, to close things out. You know what I mean? Because we get black pill people all the time, and it's something that, you know, that kind of happens, you know, in podcasts and media in general, you know, but you know, you are doing something over there that is absolutely unheard of. You're bringing the message of liberty, financial freedom to people that don't understand what it is. So that's huge. Now, you know, let me ask you this. What drives you to do what you do, knowing what the outcome could be for yourself?
Well, someday I'm going to have lots of children, hopefully, by God's grace. And I don't care much for myself personally. Anyone who really knows me knows this. I'm more concerned about my family, people around me, my friends. I don't say this to sound like a hero, but it's literally how I'm wired. Even when I was in school, I was involved in activism, and I was always fighting for other people's causes. So, and then what better cause to fight for than family, than friends, than loved ones, right? So I see things going terribly wrong in this part of the world, and I know I can do something about it. I know I can do something about it. I've been waiting for economists or someone to speak out and say, this is what the problem is, this is how to solve it. But unfortunately, we all our economists and our superstars, both in mainstream and on Twitter, and they are all Keynesians, they're all socialists. So they keep offering more of the same. And then when things go bad, they wonder why things went bad, right? So there is a serious problem here. By God's grace, I have the solution. I know how to fix these problems, right? So I decided I wouldn't just sit down and watch my society burn. There is something happening in Nigeria now where young people are fleeing. They are leaving to Canada, the US, the UK, all over the world. Nigerians are traveling out. They're leaving the country. There's actually a name for it now. It's called Japa. It's a local, it's a word in one of the languages, which means to run. So it's a thing now. People are fleeing Nigeria in droves. Hundreds of thousands of people are leaving here, right? And it's mostly young people. So if everyone leaves, then nothing is going to get better.
Nope.
Nothing's going to get better. So I feel I know it's not a matter of feel. I've studied. I've been doing this for years now, and I know that I have answers to these questions. And I've actually gone out. I've spoken to presidential candidates, as small as I am, or at least I've reached out to people in their camps, and I'm convinced that these people don't know these things. Everyone says they know them. They are just greedy. They are just wicked old politicians. But when I talk to them, when I talk to their economic advisors, when I see people on Twitter, the big shots here on Twitter, when I talk with them, when I argue with them, it's obvious that they don't know what you and I, the beliefs we share. They don't understand any of these things. So it's not like they're evil and corrupt people per se. That's literally all they know. So I decided I wasn't going to sit down and do something about it. So what I did early this year, actually began last year, was I started to reach out to politicians, right? Trying to get into campaigns. I'm not political here. Like there's no, I'm not partisan, rather. There's no party I support or anything of the sort. So I just reached out to as many people as I could, talking to them, telling them, look, what you're saying here, this is where it will fail. This one will not work for this and that reason. And maybe because of nepotism or whatever the case, I got rejected by many of those people. Many of them I sat with, discussed with them, and they said, young man, you are brilliant. We understand this thing you are saying actually makes sense, but we will not take you to the big guy for so and so reason. I'm not going to, I could tell you about that offline, not here. Yeah. So they would not take me to the main guy, the presidential candidate, the gubernatorial candidate. They won't take me to any of those people. So then I decided to start my Twitter, right? Try to reach out to people on Twitter. And I found out that the people on Twitter in my country, they were more interested. It's the same everywhere. I've noticed it I've interacted with a couple of big content creators, conservatives and libertarians over there. It's the same thing. They just want to self-promote.
Right.
They want to self-promote. Yeah, many of them, the ones I've encountered, they're not interested in change. They just want to be popular. And I've noticed when we meet, we'll talk about these things. I met with, I don't know if you know Zubi.
I know Zubi. I mean, I don't know him, but I know who he is.
Yeah.
You know,
he's Nigerian. You know that he's Nigerian.
I did not know that. I just thought he was a black man in Europe or in the UK. So I didn't know he happened to be Nigerian. You know,
he is Nigerian. He was here a couple of months ago. We met. We had a very, very interesting conversation. And I told him what I just told you now. I've interacted with some people. They are not actually interested in making any change. They just want to whatever. Anyway, so
clicks and likes, you know, I get that.
Yeah. So it's the same here. All our influencers, our big shots on Twitter, they don't want to. I've called all of them out. I pointed out the flaws in their arguments. No one has been able to say this is where you are wrong. None of them has been able to. On the Austrian side, by God's grace, we get things right. So we know how to take apart the arguments of others, but they don't have anything to say for us. So it is clear to them that what I'm saying is correct, but rather than say, okay, how do we move forward? They keep pushing their narrative that I've debunked many times. So I found out this isn't working either. So I said I was going to take the fight to the people, rather than try to reach politicians and try a top-down approach or go on Twitter. I said I'm going to take it to actual people, and that was what I have a lot of good friends in the West. I want to shout out my buddy Nate. He has been very, very good to me. My uncle Mike. I'll when this episode is out, I'll when you post, I'll tweet at them. I'll put their handles. These men have been Patrick Kirby, Yuri Bezmenov's ghost.
Patrick Kirby is great. I've actually had Patrick on my show. He is a gem in the Liberty movement. He really is. Full of wisdom. He's been around for a long time. He's a little bit older. The guy just gets it, and I appreciate the fuck out of him because he is so awesome.
Yeah, he helped me. He was the one who set up the meeting with Zuby. He went into Zuby's DMs. Apparently, they know each other, so he spoke to Zuby. One of your people is, so he set it up. So there are a couple of guys like that. So Bishop of the Mises Institute. There are a couple of guys that have been very good to me. Yourself, Infinite, Zeal.
Zeal, man, my sponsor here with I wear his hat.
Oh, that's his merch.
Yeah, this is his merch, man. The Infinite Zeal Syndicate. Let's give him a shout out.
I did not know
he sponsors this show. He helps pay the bills, man. I love that guy. He is a very well-minded, liberty-minded fella who just wants to pass along a message. He doesn't want to just shit post like a lot of us do, or like, cyber bully government, which, we all do or whatever, but like, just really wants to bring a message. And so I appreciate him too, just like I do. Patrick.
He's a very stand-up guy. He's a stand-up guy. He has helped me on more than one occasion. So I've had people help me, and then so as I said, I decided to take the fight to the people. So I want to try to educate as many people as I can, and I don't plan to do this for forever. I as I said, I'm a part-time minister of the gospel in addition to other things I do here and there. So I want to do this and focus on my real calling, which is the gospel. So I don't have more than 5 years, maybe 10 years to do this. I want to train young people, the next generation of voters, of politicians in Nigeria. Teach them Austro-libertarianism, ideas that actually work. Get them to be uncompromising, and see what happens. If we can educate 1 million Nigerians in the ways of living, and so far I've touched about 100 people. I've touched about 100 people.
That is a great start.
Yeah, and I've only been at it for a couple of months, since I actually started going out to meet people. So I have like 100 people almost 100 that believe in what I'm saying and want to learn more. And apart from, there are still people waiting to hear that I've never spoken to before. So I want to take this message all across Nigeria, reaching out to young people. So please bear with me. Let me just sell this a bit. So there's something called the Mpemba effect, right? It's a scientific, it's the name given to a phenomenon that scientists have observed. If you have boiling hot water, and then you have regular room temperature water, it takes the boiling water freezes much faster than the water at room temperature, right? It seems crazy. Why won't the water that's room temperature freeze faster? So they don't really know why exactly. There are various theories explaining it, but I noticed something. So I actually observed the thing myself of hot water freezing faster than room temperature water. So I started to look it up, and then I found out it was actually a thing. It's called the Mpemba effect. So I sort of I believe that Nigeria is like a kettle of boiling water, right? We are all extreme to the left. America is like room temperature water. You have like half right, half left, or half socialist and half capitalist. You know, America is like a mix of ideas. So there's this, you know, sometimes America swings, Republican swings, Democrat. You guys have that. In Nigeria, we are all Democrats. We are all Democrats and left of, you know, the Democrats. So
Right.
I feel just like the hot water freezing faster than the room temperature water, I believe that because of the entire country is in on one extreme side of the economic and political spectrum, I feel it would be much easier to get them to the other side, get them to freeze, than it would be in your side of the world, because there is pushback. It's almost, I don't know if I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I've actually seen it happen. Young people here, they all know one thing: socialism, Keynesianism. It's the same thing everyone knows, right? So you come with an entirely different idea. They're hungry for new ideas, so they just take it like that. So I say, put me in front of anybody, right? In front of any Nigerian. Put me in front of any Nigerian, face to face, and I will convince him. That's the guarantee I give people. And I tried it at my seminar, stood in front of people, spoke to them, and I convinced all of them, you know. So I want to keep doing that. And yeah, so.
And don't stop doing that. Please keep preaching the message of liberty to where you are, because we need it everywhere. We don't just need it here in the United States. You know, we need it in Nigeria. We need it in South Africa. We need it in Egypt. We need it in Iraq. We need it in Iran. We need it in China. We need it in Vietnam. We need it in India. We need it everywhere. We need liberty to take over. We really do. Otherwise, us as a society around the world are going to be in really bad shape. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And this is why, and I think I'm going to call this show Learn Austrian Economics.
Yeah.
I'm going to call this show Learn Austrian Economics with Econ Bro, because it's something that is imperative to society around the world, not just in this country or that country. We need to take the bull by the horns and take control of our money and our livelihoods. And the Austrian way is the only way.
Yes, I agree 100%.
It's not going to work otherwise. It's going to be more power for them, more money for them, less power for us, less money for us. It's not hard math. So I mean, you know, it's imperative. Like, when it comes to Austrian economists, who's your three favorites right now, right off the rip, before we go?
Do you mean of all time or?
Of all time, who's your favorite three Austrian economists right now?
Rothbard always comes first.
Amen.
Rothbard comes first. Hopper is a close second. I love Hans Hermann Hopper.
Okay.
And I'm torn between Mises and Hazlitt, because Mises is the goat. He's the father of our movement, you know, like he's the father of our movement. So I'm torn between Mises and why Hazlitt is because, as I said, reading Hazlitt was what blew my mind and made me switch.
Hazlitt breaks it down for you.
Yeah.
Very simple. Like, it's just like, it's very black and white. There's no gray area.
Yes.
You know, where Mises is a little bit harder to understand, you know, because it's in such old terms, you know, especially for somebody who's not, you know, great on the English language in general, you know, it's kind of hard to get through. I get that. I totally understand it. But like, if you could really, if you're able to understand what he's speaking of in the old terms, Mises is great. Mises, like we both said, you know, The Theory of Money and Credit is one of the greatest books of money written, period. You know, I actually, funny story about Zeal and I, I couldn't read The Theory of Money and Credit. I got about through, I could, but I got through about 6 chapters of it. The print was so small, and I wear glasses for reading, and I couldn't get through it. It was just, the print was way too small for me. So I traded in books for a Scott Horton book, Enough Already, which is about U.S.
Yeah.
But I had Scott on my show, great conversation, but that's how I ended up with that book, is because I literally couldn't read The Theory of Money and Credit. I had to get it on audio, which I don't recommend. The audio version I got was a very not so good reader. I don't want to say anything.
Yeah, very monotonous.
They weren't good readers. But for me, definitely Rothbard. I'm a Rothbardian. Murray Rothbard, he paved the landscape of the liberty movement that Ron Paul built on. And I'm a Ron Paul guy as well. So it's Rothbard. But then I got to throw in Spooner. He's not an Austrian economist or economist.
Yes, but
but he's very well versed in liberty. So well, then let me take that back. I'll leave Spooner out of this. Rothbard, Mises, Hazlitt.
Those all good choices. All good.
But like in my like personal, I like to read their stuff. Rothbard, Spooner, Scott Horton. I love Scott Horton. But that's more foreign policy than Austrian economy.
Yeah.
But he is part of the Mises Institute. He's a Mises guy. And
I didn't know that about Scott Horton.
Oh yeah, Scott Horton is a big time Mises guy. Antiwar.com. That's all Mises Institute stuff. But he focuses on anti-war, and foreign policy, which is a little bit outside of the economy, but they do go hand in hand. Foreign policy and economy go together. They're like, peas and carrots pretty much.
But
Econ, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for telling
Thank you for having me.
You are a brave soul. You are definitely a brave soul for preaching the message that you are preaching, not only about Austrian economy, but about the Lord, where you're at. Dude, you're doing great things over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless your audience.
And until next time, peace, love, and liberty, y'all. Be good.